Would you say young adults are able to multitask? And if so, how well with a smartphone?
Um, Multitasking is sort of a myth for everybody. I mean, in terms of being able to do more than one thing at a time, the research is pretty compelling that no one can really do more than one thing at a time. Now, some people are better at switching modes from one thing to another, monitoring this, monitoring that, and then shifting among the tasks. But there's just a very minute percentage of the population that has been shown that they can actually do two things at once. Leonardo da Vinci, for example, could draw with one hand and write with the other at the same time. But of course, that's an extraordinary human being, and there just aren't many like him, of course.
Not taken away from Da Vinci, but he didn't exactly have a smartphone during his time. So, what makes smartphones so addictive?
Now cell phones have turned into smartphones, so that there's a combination of stuff. You have a really computing device that also incorporates the ability for you to communicate with other people via cell towers and using cell phone technology. So that's the real difference in that aspect, is that smartphones right now are not really smart, but what they are little computing devices that allow you to run applications, right? Apps, allow you to gain information. So from that respect, it makes you a smarter person, right? Because you have access to all that information. So that's the major difference, at least for me.
Asking if young people could do without smart technology now is sort of like asking if we could do without mail delivery or um, without a telephone. I don't think so. I think you get used to what you've got, and it's a wonderful thing. I know I couldn't do without my cell phone and the technology too, but there's so much more to communication than just looking at a screen.
You being a professor, dealing with the age group at hand, how does smartphones affect your relationships with your students?
Um, I would say there's a two-pronged answer. On the one hand, it's nice to be able to utilize the technology. All my students really have cell phones, whether, over the course of the 25 years I've been teaching, students have acquired more and more technology, and I can use that to communicate with them, remind them about tests or assignments that are due, change due dates, outside of class. I can communicate with them easily in a way that they have ready access to. On the other hand, I don't allow cell phones in my classroom. They have to be put away, and if students pull them out, I tell them to put them away, and if they leave the classroom to answer a phone call, which I've had students do, and I tell them to take their stuff and go. This creates some tension. A lot of faculty don't practice this policy. And so students might get upset with me because why do I make them not have their phone? I know there's a growing number of students who experience anxiety when they're parted from their phone, from their technology, even from 50 minutes. I try to point out I made it to 30 without ever having a cell phone. You can make it years and years and years without one. Um, but the anxiety is real. And yet, if I allow cell phones, the distraction is also real. So students are checking their phones, they're texting, they're reading their email, they're Facebooking, they're doing whatever they're doing. They're not focused on what I'm presenting. I have them for less than 3 hours a week, and I need their attention. I need them to focus in on what I'm presenting so that they can get the most out of their financial expenditures. I mean, they're paying for this education. It's to help their future and their knowledge base so that they can do their careers and be well-rounded citizens. And they need, in that moment, to get to, I think, surrender technology. I do. I don't bring my cell phone to class. I give up knowing how my kids are doing and what's going on with them if there's an emergency, to spend that time with them and be focused on my students. And I expect the same thing, and I know it does create some tensions and anger from some of my students. I think that technology, like any advancement over history, can have both negative and positive consequences, and certainly unintended consequences. If we use technology to improve communications among us, I think it can be a positive, but it can also, I know, get in the way of being in the present. So, if I'm going to be late for dinner, instead of not being able to tell my husband that I'm going to be late, and he's wondering where I am and worried about me, and I get home and he's upset, I can use my cell phone and say, honey, I'm going to be late. So it can improve communication and relationships in that way. But if I use it instead of face-to-face communication as a replacement, I think it can definitely hurt relationships among people. I worry in particular about all that you lose through a cell phone. We do cell phones so we have tone of voice if we're talking, but more and more we're using text messages and even briefer forms. You don't get tone of voice. You're not going to write a great big long complex feeling in a text message.
Well, I use a smartphone and I enjoy that, but what I really miss is more time to be with people, to be, so many misunderstandings can happen when you don't know the person well enough that you're communicating with. You can take what they say that as being angry or from a certain perspective that you don't approve of or don't like. It's difficult, and to me it's harder to communicate that way. It's brief and sweet, but nothing replaces eye-to-eye contact and being in the presence of someone you want to be in the presence of. Could you survive without it? I don't know.
Okay, so with respect to the fact that would I ever turn back to a phone, say before 5 years, let's say, the answer is no way. The phone for me, my smartphone, is very important because I use it for work. So I have my own personal phone that I use for work as well. And being that I'm the absent-minded professor, so to speak, I couldn't live without or remember anything without my phone. So the answer is just no. On the other hand, I don't use my phone the way others use the phone, right? So I use it actually purely for communication and for business purposes, right? But most people use it for other entertainment values. So my phone is actually used by my kids for entertainment values, not me. So again, because of my work, I would never think of going back. And this brings back to me a small story of some friends of mine. So one of my friends actually still had the old flip phone, and this was maybe 2-3 years ago. And so we're in a gathering together with a bunch of friends, and one of my other friends goes to that friend, goes, Jesus called and they want their phone back. So that was kind of an interesting point that, your phone is really old and you should really move to a new phone. So the answer is just purely no. I would not go back and to an old flip phone, say, type cell phone, right?
Making and building relationships is always a difficult task for anybody at any age, at any time. Young people have less experience in the process, so they face even more challenges in how to transition to mature adult relationships. Technology, one of the things I see is getting faster and faster. So people want quicker answers, shorter attention spans. Their attention is easily, shifted to a new thing. They can't focus in. They're not as patient. And I think that this can have a real detriment to relationships. Um, Being able to wait for the answer, being able to be patient with your partner as you talk about things, being able to give them time to think and change their mind. Even technology, you have a written record. So we say something we don't mean, 6 months later, we can say, look, I know I said something kind of awful and I'm sorry I said that. But our partner now has a written record that they can pull up and look at every day and remind themselves of that thing we said, to dwell on the positive and the negative. I mean, the negative, of course, would be the issue, but the positive as well. So I think the patience and the time commitment that's necessary for deep relationship building, the communication, is not really facilitated by an information age that throws things at us at a quicker and quicker refresh rate, so that we're used to getting new information at a fraction of a second. It's coming at us so quickly, and that's just not the way we are in real life, in person. So I think it does present challenges, especially to the younger generation who are developing these skills and don't have skills outside, so they're just now learning these skills, and who have been so inundated their whole lives with faster and faster media forms.